Welcome to the conversation part of the Upper World podcast. We have from 1053 The Fan. He is the co-host of Fan University with Jake Reitma and Brendan Baxter. He is also the video coordinator for all the shows on 1053 The Fan. He's got a Substack that you should subscribe to called Musings on Music, which you should check out since it's Spotify rap season. So I hope everyone's just doing all the stories and stuff, just blowing away. And the only person that'll judge it more than my playlist and my artist is Carter Freemon, who's back on the pod. Carter, how are we doing? I gotta ask, it's Spotify rap season. You've seen some of my music already. I need your opinion already. Am I in trouble? I like to say.
No, Trevor, thank you for having me back on the pod. I'm happy to be here, and I try not to judge people's music tastes until I get to know them. And unless you've got like some Machine Gun Kelly or some just real like degenerate stuff in there, like yours is metal. It's some Rob Zombie. It's some Queens of the Stone Age. A little Calvin Harris thrown in there for some flavor. It can't just be all metal, right? Variety is the spice of life, as they say. So no judgment here. When my Spotify Wrapped, of the 88,000 minutes of music I listened to this year, 5,000 of them were Turnstile, and 4 of my top 5 songs this year were Turnstile songs. So I don't know if I'm even following my own advice with the variety stuff.
No, I can say I think you're sticking to a plan and like you listen to all the archiving, going to the deep cuts that no one's even thought about yet, and making great articles on Musings on Music on Substack, which I feel is clutch since people need to always need to look for new music, and I check it out as well because I saw Turnstile live as they open up for Blink 182 back in 2023, and I'm a fan of them anyway. So
that I think it's quite obvious that I love what they're doing with how much I listen to them. I think I was in the 0.01% of their top fans. But yeah, just the mixture of hardcore with alternative music with a little bit of electronics thrown in there. It's melodic. It's simple, but there's a lot of complexity to it. It's like easy. It's very accessible for hardcore music, which is that genre is usually a lot more abrasive on purpose. But it's good stuff, man. And clearly, I like what they're doing. I saw them too earlier this year. I saw them here in Fort Worth,
there we go,
DFW area, and they were great.
That's awesome. All right, want to know what's great is? It's college football season. It's conference championship weekend. Yep. The other thing that's great is people are bitching about the rankings. Like we need to go back to. We've had people saying we need to go back to the old BCS computer system from the early 2000s. What's your thoughts on that? Those takes I've heard down here in Miami. What's yours on that, by the way?
Do you think that people would be happy if the championship game was Ohio State versus Indiana? Because I mean,
no.
Exactly. Like no. The BCS rankings still exist. They're not as, you don't take them into consideration for who the champion is like you used to, but the BCS rankings do still exist, and they have Indiana and Ohio State at the very top. So obviously in this system, they'd play for the title, and then one of them, you may or may not end up seeing that again in the title game. But I think you crave for the BCS, you crave for what you once saw. But then once you get the result, you're just going to bitch again, because that's what college football is all about. Is about arguing and fighting with your friends over who you think is better. And you mentioned Miami, and there's a lot to get into there with them versus Notre Dame having the same record, but Notre Dame is in front of Miami despite Miami beating them head to head. I don't crave for the BCS. I was a big fan of the 4-team CFP in a power conference, in a 5-power conference era. With these big super conferences, it just doesn't work the same as it once was, because it was nice when the 12-team playoff came to be. That's when these conferences got way too big, which makes it a little more palatable for the 12-team system to exist in my mind. But I love the 4-team playoff era. I feel like the teams you argued for that last spot were actually really deserving. Unlike when you get down to 11 and 12 in this current era, where it's like, okay, both these teams have 2 losses. They both have a lot of warts. It gets really hard to distinguish between them when there's so many teams in contention for that.
I know, it's a never-ending cycle anyway. Someone's going to be playing the Pop-Tart Bowl. No offense to the Pop-Tart Bowl or the Outback Bowl.
Hey, don't make fun of the Pop-Tart Bowl. That's one of the best non-playoff games. I love me some Pop-Tart Bowl. I have the Pop-Tarts Bowl hat over there. I should go grab it and put it on.
Well, I make a joke about this every time. That's why I wanted Mario to win it last year. You can just like take the toaster and just like pop it. I was like, you want a Pop-Tart recruit? Like, come on. Like, I've been the funniest thing ever. I just think you're down to 3 teams. They've all, like, the Miami Notre Dame debate is just like it's like a hammer and a nail almost. It's like you could go either way. We've talked about it and stuff down here many times. Like you kind of played almost the same people as well. Like they had I like to say Miami had a better win over Notre Dame. On Miami had a better wins, especially with the common opponent, like over Pittsburgh, NC State, and like even though like Syracuse played a lacrosse player as their quarterback, which is I feel is organizational malpractice anyways. That you should be like kicked out of the league for that for a while and be forced to be independent. Am I allowed to say that at least?
We're talking about Notre Dame, so sure, why not?
Yeah. Like this is like think about this. Like you played Navy, like you had Pat Narduzzi saying like we don't give a bleep about Notre Dame anyways. It's like when you look at their opponents, it's like what are we doing here? Like I know Miami beat them head to head. Like are we not considering any more losses? Like good wins early on in the season. Like Miami's the state champs, even though they beat a bad Florida team and even worse Florida State team. I don't know what to say anymore. I'm like at a loss of words, anyways.
I think the committee this year, and when we talk about subjectivity and how everyone feels differently about it, this year with the way the committee has gone about their business, it seems you used the word malpractice. I think that's fair here because I'm a big fan of releasing the rankings every week, but the way that the committee does it is they're too reactionary to certain things. That's what the AP poll is for. The committee's supposed to stack up your entire resume up to a certain point and not say, oh, you lost this weekend, so we're going to drop you immensely. Like that's what they did with Miami in the very first rankings that they did. Miami had just lost to SMU, so then they dropped them all the way down to 18 to where they're way behind Notre Dame at that point, even though they do have the same record, because you're like, oh, SMU's not very good. Like that's a terrible loss. I can't believe Miami did that. Well, SMU nearly ends up playing for an ACC title. All of a sudden that loss doesn't look that bad. But the committee can't just jump Miami up 8 spots over all these teams that they've already ranked in front of them. And they would expect like, oh, they're all going to lose and it'll work itself out. Well, that's a lame way to go about your business because what if it doesn't? Because in a way it hasn't, because Miami has still had to wait and crawl, and the committee's had to, fart around and figure out all these reasons why Miami should be up there when they should have been there to begin with. So this year it's been the most, and there's also the Notre Dame and Alabama thing where these rankings that we just saw, Alabama jumped Notre Dame when they both beat sub 500 teams. Notre Dame blew out Stanford. Alabama barely ends up beating Auburn on the road, so there's some merit to that. Yeah. But just out of the blue, they say, oh, the Auburn win really impressed us. And it's like a 5-7 Auburn team, a win over them really impressed you. And I thought it was funny, the Hunter Yurachek, the CFP committee chair, he said that the Alabama winning a rivalry game was more impressive than what Notre Dame did. I'm like, Notre Dame Stanford's a rivalry too. And there are just a lot of things like that where it doesn't seem like they watch the sport in the same way that the rest of us do. No. And it's frustrating.
I think it's super frustrating. And plus, seeing Notre Dame, I saw the highlights. Notre Dame had to pull a fake punt just to see like we're running up the score anyways, just to prove a point. And I was like, you guys did that back in the day too, anyways.
Well, against Syracuse a couple weeks ago, they were up 35-0, 5 seconds into the second quarter. And I was like, if I'm Notre Dame, I'm scoring 100 points in this game because that's what they need to do. Because like you said, they lose to A&M and they lose to Miami at the beginning of the season. And if they're going to end up making this thing, they have to do it with style points because they're not playing, majorly tough opponents week in, week out, like teams from the SEC are. So I was like, score 100 points. People will remember that. They ended up scoring 70. I think they could have scored 100 if they wanted, but that's what they need to do. And all of a sudden, if BYU wins this weekend and if Alabama wins this weekend, Notre Dame might be on the outside looking in. And if they're right next to Miami, they could flip Miami in front of them. Like I don't think that's completely out of the question.
I don't think anything's out of the question. I think Hunter Yurachek had the quote that we played on Miami Hurricanes basketball pregame that the rankings can be reordered after this weekend's game. It's like I think it's even more crazier for at 12 noon. Anyways, what's going to happen? Anyways, you're going to play. I have no idea what the bracket's going to be, but it's either you're going to take Miami over the ACC conference champion winner, which I think
you can't do. That can't happen. The way the poll or the way that the CFP bracket works is you take the 5 highest ranked conference champions, which at this point that might not be the ACC champion if 7 and
No.
5 Duke beats Virginia. You could have both the American champion and James Madison in this thing over the ACC champ, which would just be an absolute disaster for the ACC when your best team is looking at having to make it as an at-large because your conference is 17 teams big and Duke didn't play a lot of the other teams around it, but it ended up winning the tiebreaker when they were tied with 5 other teams that are tied with 2 conference losses. Like, after this year, the ACC is going to make changes.
They should.
I'll tell you what, the American Conference, they do it by conference championship game participants are determined by CFP ranking. So that's why Tulane is hosting UNT, even though UNT has a better overall record. They both have 1 conference loss. Well, Tulane was ranked in the poll going up to last weekend. So that means Tulane ends up getting to host the game, and UNT ended up ranked 2. But because both of them are ranked, and Navy's also sitting there with 1 conference loss, they took those 2 teams instead. And if you're the ACC, that's something you need to do, because you cannot live in a world where Duke, all respect to the Blue Devils, if you win the conference, that's the way the system's set up, and you got there, and if you win, you will never forget that. You earn yourself a conference title. But if you're the ACC and you're looking out for the health of the league on the whole, you need your best teams in there, and your best team's Miami. And they don't even they have a very slim shot because of how many other good teams there are right now.
It's crazy, and I could bitch about the ACC as much as anybody next to Joe Zagacchio much, and I'm at the point now. I'd rather just see all the old Big East schools in the ACC, and just I'm like, let's create the old Big East again and get the Catholic League schools to join in anyways and make it more fun at least. I'm at that point right now. So
I've been at the point where I think we should have a bunch of 10-team conferences with a round-robin schedule, and then the teams with the 2 best records in conference play for the conference title. That way you have one united champion for your conference. I went to Oklahoma for the entirety of my time in school. It was a 10-team conference, and that meant you played a round-robin schedule, and then the teams with the 2 best records, once they brought back the championship game, played for that title, so you had 1 champ, and that just made more sense than split titles like with Baylor and TCU in 2014. And it's healthy to have that 1 team that's clearly the best out of your league. And now you have the ACC. Half the teams don't play the other teams. In the SEC, it's the same way. They're just now going to a 4-year rotation where you'll play everybody within that 4-year span, but you have 9 games and you have permanent opponents. So you're only going to play A&M. Like if you're OU, you play A&M next year and then 2 years after that. And it's just like, those are 2 of the teams with the best records in the SEC this year, and they didn't even play. And there's something ridiculous about that. And I don't think these conferences are about to split up because the money's too good. And that's what always drives this. It's, the answer is money. What was the question? I think Rick Neuheisel said that. That's what drives this entire thing. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. But these big conferences are just going to continue to cause big headaches until something like the SCORE Act goes through Congress and the Senate and gets passed at the government level. And that just got pushed back today. So that's not even going to happen. So it's a big mess, man. It's a fun mess, but it's a mess nonetheless.
Hey, there's a lot of messes out there. Like one big mess in Penn State. Who's going to be the head coach? Anyways, we'll get to that later. At least
That's a great question. That is an excellent question.
Yes, I just have so much stuff to bitch about this thing. I said this about Miami. This is one thing I have a biggest gripe for the ACC. Get rid of the Friday games. That's my biggest thing. I know some teams play on Fridays. Just get rid of it, please. Because if you have your best teams, like you could have a top 10 match between Miami and Florida State. I think that was week 5 at least, and I was like that, and we got screwed out of it because Florida State can't win a road game anymore. So, and it just boggles my mind.
Barely win ACC games. And some of it is on the schools themselves for not, being up to snuff. And the 2 games Miami lost, they probably should have won both of them. But the thing about the Friday games is that's publicity for the ACC, and they need that. Like, people don't tune on like the ABC games, ESPN's ABC games. Those are 90% of the time. Those are SEC games. Like this year, I can remember you had Texas Tech hosting BYU in the early part of November, and then you had Florida at Miami
Mhm.
in like the late part of September. Like those are always going to be SEC games. So the Friday games are great for ACC teams to be in the spotlight. You just have to live up to your end of the bargain. You can't be
Yeah.
Florida State where you get this miracle, shocking win in week 1 and then just try and coast off that for the rest of the season and then go 4-7 after you beat Alabama, right? Some of it's on the
Yeah.
teams, but yeah, maybe those Friday night games aren't the best, but you have to live with those because that's how your league gets seen.
Mhm. There's a lot of things I bitch about, and also when you those West, you have two West Coast teams throwing an East Coast team at a 10:30 start is ridiculous. Like I'm already like people are preparing myself as they play Stanford next year. Like they're gonna throw this game at 10:30 at least. I'm gonna be mad as hell anyways.
That's when the Cal game was last year, right? When
Yes.
Miami played at Cal
Yes.
with Woke versus Coke. I
Yes.
remember that was a really late start game.
I was so funny enough. I was at a wedding with all Cal alumni, and I was the only Miami guy there. And I was like, they're losing, and I had a Florida State fan chirping me the whole time. Lo and behold, Miami pulled it off, and I saw the Florida State fan like,
Yeah,
"How about that win?" And I was like, "Shut up already." So
you got the last laugh there. It didn't look like this was good. Because I remember that game. It was Cal was up like 29-0 at one point.
yeah, it was 21-10 or
But
something like something
yeah,
crazy like
something
that.
crazy.
Just ridiculous. All right, who would you say is your team going to get? You think it's going to miss out? You think? Do you think it's going to be? Do you think BYU has a chance of upsetting Texas Tech, or is this Texas Tech just a juggernaut? Would you say?
Texas Tech is 100% a juggernaut. Texas Tech has won 11 games, and all of those games they've won by 3 or more touchdowns. That's
Mm-hmm.
how good they've been. And you can say, oh, the Big 12 is not the SEC or the whatever. Winning by 3 touchdowns in every game you play is really impressive.
Yes.
And it's not just that they're winning by 3 touchdowns, it's they're winning by more than that because Texas Tech's defense is phenomenal. And you saw
Mm-hmm.
that the first time they played BYU looked unprepared. And
Oh yeah.
BYU had a really good season up to that point, and they looked like they were on a completely different, a lower plane than the way Texas Tech was playing. Now, that game was in Lubbock, and that was
Mhm.
game day. That was like this coronation for Texas Tech, and in terms of being like, all right, we're here and we belong. This Big 12 championship game on Saturday, it's a neutral site. It'll probably still be a lot of Tech fans since it is in Dallas, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Big Tech alumni base, but BYU fans are everywhere. So it's
Yeah.
not just going to be 100% Red Raider Nation there. Like
No.
Cougar Nation can show up too. And in the 6 times since the Big 12 championship game has been brought back, in the 6 times it's been a rematch from a regular season game. The team that lost the regular season game won the championship game. So
Mm.
there's a little bit of history there where you're like, okay, BYU wasn't prepared this time. They might be a little better prepared this time, and they know they have to win.
Yeah.
Texas, if they lose, I think they're still in the field.
Oh,
But
I agree too.
they're already outside of the field right now, so they really don't have much of a shot, especially with the teams in front of them. There's no one who really looks like they're there to drop out. So BYU has to win. So you got to think they'd be going in with that mindset. But could the Kalani Sataki to Penn State stuff that didn't come to fruition, could that be in their minds as well? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Because I'm picking Texas Tech to win this game. I think they'll win by double digits. But BYU is going to play with a back against the wall because that's kind of how they've been the entire season.
Yeah. I think BYU's been a great program to watch. Plus, Texas Tech's only loss was at Arizona State, anyways, that was a crazy game as well. So
With their backup quarterback, Baron Morton didn't play in that game,
yeah.
and to the point of how good I think Texas Tech is, they with their backup quarterback on the road against the team that won the league last year, who at that point still only had 1 or 2 losses, they were leading that game within the final minute of regulation. So Texas Tech is just really freaking good.
Yeah, they're very freaking good. Anyways, I think the other game I think it's been intriguing this weekend is the Georgia Alabama. I think it's round 2, round 3. I don't know what the round they're on. Anyways, the SEC title
Round
game.
2 this year.
Round
Oh,
2.
for the SEC title game, gosh, I don't know the total, but this is the 3rd
Too
time in the
many.
last 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. What do we want out of this game? Do we want Georgia to win, or do we want Alabama to lose for this? By the way, out of your like viewing pleasure, I like to say.
Well, as an OU fan, I want Georgia to win this game and keep Alabama behind OU so we can host a home playoff game because
Ooh.
it seems like as long as Texas Tech and Georgia win, the top 8 teams aren't really going to shuffle all that much because the
Mm-hmm.
rest of them don't really play. But Georgia has not had Alabama's number. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. Alabama has had Georgia's number for, I don't know, seems like my entire lifetime. The only time Georgia's beaten Alabama in recent memory was in a rematch that was in the 2021 national championship game up in Indianapolis because Alabama waxed an undefeated Georgia team in the SEC title game. Well, Georgia came back in the rematch and ended up winning and won the national championship for the first time since the 1980s. So if you're Georgia, you got to be hoping it's going to kind of be the same thing. Now, Georgia this entire season has been, they'll grind you to dust. They're not going to out-talent you like they used to, even though they're still very talented. They're not far and away more. They don't have more 5 stars or more 4 stars than everybody else. It's a little more balanced now, right? Well, Georgia just beats you down. They just wear you out. And this Alabama team that showed early in the season, they found a way to overcome that. And Georgia only passing for like 70 yards against a Georgia Tech team that had given up 1,500 yards in their previous 3 games. In last Friday's, good old fashioned hate. That's a little concerning because Georgia's looked really good for all the season except that Bama game. But then to have that performance in the lead up to SEC title game, I'm kind of like, well, Alabama, I've seen them do this a lot. And Alabama, despite the struggle against Auburn, they still had that stretch early in the season where they knocked off Georgia, they knocked off Tennessee, they knocked off Vanderbilt, they knocked off Mizzou. They were beating all these ranked teams in a row. And when they lost to Oklahoma, they only lost by 2 points. It wasn't like the OU dominated because OU can't score worth a damn. It was just that one of the best defenses in the country managed to shut them down. So I don't know. This is very much a toss-up where neither team looks like they're, on this, this collision course with a deep playoff run. But, Georgia's sitting there ranked 3rd in the country. Are they prepared to go back against Alabama? And what did they learn from the first time they played this year? I'm with you. I think this is a really super exciting game. I can't wait to watch.
I can't wait to watch it either, as I don't have to do much on a Saturday. Anyway, I think that's probably my number 1 game. I'm not going to watch much of the Big Ten title game. That's going to be me.
Really? You're not interested in that? Those are 2 undefeated teams playing.
They are undefeated teams. I have a bias of hating Ohio State with a passion, and I wanted Michigan to win really badly. So,
which is fair. I totally understand that. Ohio State's they're the big dogs, and they've been the entire season. They've been number 1 in the country since after week 1. So I totally understand it.
It's been boring to me. It's like they're going to blow out Indiana by 30, and I'm going to be like, flip a pen in the air. Is like, what the hell? What did I waste my time for anyway? So.
See, I don't think they're just going to blow by Indiana because
I hope not.
As good as Ohio State's been, it's been driven by their defense. They're allowing less than 8 points a game, which is just insane. That they're allowing less than 8 points a game. The transition from Jim Knowles to Matt Patricia on the defense has been like, wow. Like, okay, I knew Ohio State was a factory, but it's even more of a factory than I ever could have imagined. But this Indiana team is better than the one last year that lost by a ton in Columbus. I think Fernando Mendoza is a better quarterback than Curtis Rourke, who they had last year. I think just the overall talent on Indiana is on par with just about anybody else in the country, sans maybe Ohio State. But we've kind of normalized how good Indiana is, which is wild because Indiana football has been nothing for a long, long time. Then all of a sudden they're 12-0. They beat Purdue by 50 on last Friday, and nobody mentions it. And it's like, guys, this is literally insane that Indiana's this good. And what have they learned from that game from last year? What did they learn from going down on the road and then end up beating a top 10 Oregon team a week after Oregon themselves got a big win? Like, this Indiana team is battle-tested, and I do not think they're just going to wilt to Ohio State because Ohio State is winning games like 30-3. They're not winning games 60-20, right?
No.
Like, they don't score as many points as I think a lot of people want to think they do. So if Indiana's defense can figure something out, maybe shut down a not 100% Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and you got a freshman running back at Bo Jackson who's been toting the rock well for Ohio State, but this is first, they're not going. Ohio State hasn't been challenged like they are going to be this Friday night since week 1 against Texas. I don't think, because I don't really think they were super challenged by Michigan all that much.
No, I think that Michigan game was awful, as I like to say anyways. I was like, what are we doing here anyways? So
I think there are things that work into Indiana's favor here more than I think national pundits will lead you to believe.
I'm just happy it's an 8:00 game on Fox anyway. They have Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt calling it for me anyways. That's what I'm really excited for anyways, if I'm going to watch it.
That'll be a watch on mute because I cannot stand Gus Johnson. There are 2 announcers in college football that I cannot listen to. Gus is at times palatable, but the second down run for 2 yards being the best play he's ever seen in his life, I find that very exhausting. But not as exhausting as Joe Tessitore on ESPN trying to just use every word in the dictionary, every word in the thesaurus to try and make himself sound really smart when he fumbles over every word that he uses for every big play and makes it sound like a damn joke. That is so annoying to me.
That's
and
why
I don't think OU's had a Joe Tessitore game this year. And I'm like, thank God I can watch these games with the volume on if I'm not up in Norman, because he drives me up a freaking wall.
That's why I always tell him you're great at boxing anyways, and you'll stick to boxing.
Boxing and wrestling. I think he's great at both of those. Football, ESPN has so many other better voices for play-by-play with football, in my opinion.
I can go on a rant about Tessitore doing football and Monday Night Football 2018, but I'm not going to, at least. Let's be honest here. All right.
Yeah, let's talk about college football. That's what
let's talk about college football. How much North Texas Tulane? I feel like we got to talk about it since you are in the Dallas area, you're near Denton and stuff for University of North Texas. How exciting has that team been for locally, would you say?
It's really cool because UNT does not do this. In fact, they've never done something like this. Yeah. They've played for a conference title here or there before, but when they were playing for Conference USA titles, or even I think those are the last two that they played for, they were far and away like the number 2 team in those scenarios. Like in this game against Tulane, they're favored and they're on the road, and it's like UNT just doesn't do stuff like this, and they don't do things like this in the way they're doing it with how prolific the offense is, because Eric Morris is going to leave for Oklahoma State once UNT's season is over. You have to assume a lot of the best players on this team will follow him there or end up elsewhere. But for the time being, I've been telling people, like, don't worry about what's going to happen. Enjoy this now.
Enjoy the ride.
Because UNT hasn't been ranked since the late 50s. I think it was 1959 was the last time UNT was in the AP poll. And for the first time ever, they were ranked in the CFP poll that came out yesterday. They're playing for a conference title. If they win this game, they might end up being not just in the CFP, but they might be the 11 seed. They might not even be the lowest seed in this thing. Like, this is phenomenal stuff. And it would be really hard pressed to find somebody around here, even at a school in the same conference in the American as UNT, that's like, yeah, I just really I hate UNT's having so much success. It's like they're the perennial underdog. And the last 2 seasons they went 6-7. Funny joke and everything. But to see this in the form it is, with Drew Messamaker being awesome and the offense just humming along and the defense getting timely turnovers, it's really, really cool. And you have to like their chances against a Tulane team who they have a bad loss too. UNT lost to South Florida earlier this year. That was a bad loss. Well, Tulane went on the road to UTSA, who freaking stinks, and got mollywopped. One of my favorite phrases to use. They got mollywopped by a terrible UTSA team. And just the way UNT's playing, bouncing back from that South Florida loss, I love them to not just go into Yulman Stadium and get the win. I think they're like 2.5-point favorites. They are covering that spread, my friend.
That's crazy. I think it's gonna be a fun. That's a great appetizer for Friday night. Anyways, you need something to watch. Tulane, North Texas. I'm down already. I'll give you something to watch.
I like that the Group of 5 or the 4 of the 5 Group of 5 championships are on Friday night, and I like that. That gives them like we talked about the ACC stuff earlier. That gives them their own time to shine. Like, all the eyeballs are going to be on North Texas, on Tulane. Like, I think that's really cool. I think leagues and teams like that need that, and that game is going to be on ABC. Like, 5 years ago, if you told me North Texas is going to be playing on ABC in a primetime slot, I would have been like, give me the crack you're smoking, because I want to try it. And yet here we are.
Yeah, I always thought like the Pac-12 did a good job. Anyways, just throw it on a Friday night at least, when the Pac-12 title game, when they were around like USC, Utah, or like Oregon,
Washington, Oregon, in the
like
final.
I love that. It was the perfect like Friday night like Pac-12 title game, and people were like, why are you watching that? I was like, it's a Pac-12 title game. Come on, celebrate it.
Why would I not watch that? I love the Pac-12.
Definitely. Who do you? Here's the thing I miss. I could not do the Big 10 or ACC or Big 12 after dark this year. I don't know why. It just feels disgusting. I feel like I'm wearing a dirty shirt. And like, this belongs to the Pac-12. Even though I love Tim Brando and Petros Papadakis calling those late night games, it's not the same.
It's definitely not. last year, one of the first games of the season last year was like a late night West Coast. I think it was a Big Ten game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just wasn't right. Will I still watch it? Yes. Do I watch it with the same level of like, adoration that I did with the Pac-12 After Dark? No. Like it's watching Florida State lose on the road to Stanford earlier this year was fun, but not in the same way it was watching UCLA and Oregon State go at it at 10 p.m. Central on a Saturday night when they're both scoring like 50 points. Like the Pac-12 is reforming in a way. It's a zombie version of what it used to be. Same name, but you're getting a lot of Mountain West teams like Boise State, Colorado State, what may have you in there. Maybe they can form some fun out of that.
Let's hope.
But the way it was originally, like that, you just don't recapture that when you said earlier you have two West Coast teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. That just doesn't have this. That doesn't mesh quite right.
The only thing I do like is that there's SMU in Texas anyways. It's good for recruiting for all the ACC schools. And plus, you have a good road trip to go to at least.
Yeah. Although, look, I've been to Stanford Stadium. That has nothing to write home about. It's hard to get to. And it's probably going to be about 40% capacity. And it's just sad because I remember the Andrew Luck teams and even the Kevin Hogan teams after that in the early 2010s being really, really good. And they are very far from doing that again anytime soon, even with Andrew Luck there trying to steer the ship as their football GM.
Can we talk about that? Andrew Luck looks so weird being a football GM. Am I right?
He's a football guy. He can't play anymore.
He looks like a nerdy football guy, just like rides a scooter around. It's like, come on, just ride a motorcycle at least, or a moped at least. That'd be even more funnier.
Dude, he went to Stanford.
I know.
Like nerds are their thing, right? Like you can't you can take the man out of Stanford, but you can't take the Stanford out of the man. That kind of thing.
I know. That's I dealt with way too many. I grew up with many USC fans, University of Southern California Trojan fans. They're so used to making fun of the Stanford fans, so I usually like doing that anyway. So I give myself props for it. All right, let's talk about a head coaching carousel. Should we just go off the hot topic first? Just Lane Kiffin. What were your thoughts to him going to LSU? I kind of want him to stay at Ole Miss, and now he's pretty much become, as I quote Joe Zagacki, he's become Voldemort on campus as he was saying on Tuesday night. By the way.
I'm glad it's done.
Yeah.
It just got to the point where they dragged it out for so long, and Lane Kiffin made it all about him. And that whenever he chose to leave a championship contending team in the middle of their season, he made it seem like it was Ole Miss's fault that he left when it was his choice. Like the whole saga is annoying, and I thought he was going to stay too. Just given the situations that he was going to with potentially Florida, which needed to be rebuilt from the ground up, or LSU, where the governor of the state of Louisiana was getting involved in that search, and it was such an ugly breakup with Brian Kelly. I'm like, is Lane going to want to walk into that? And obviously the answer is yes, because it's LSU, and they're a blue blood, and you get more resources and all that fun stuff with it. But it just Lane making all of that about him at the expense of his players, the ones that got him to that point, that rubbed me the wrong way. And then him trying to, kick mud up at Ole Miss saying, well, I wanted a coach, but they wouldn't let me. And it's like, well, yeah, they wouldn't let you. Could you imagine if everyone, and that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. Ole Miss and LSU, they've played over 100 times. They've been in the same conference since freaking Woodrow Wilson was president, if not before, like World War I. That's how long, that's how far back they go. They played every year since World War II, since 1945. Those teams hate each other. And for one to go to the others, go from one to your biggest rival, could you imagine if Lane Kiffin had announced, I'm going to LSU, but they're going to let me stick around and coach this team, and they're going to host a playoff game at Ole Miss. Vaught Hemingway Stadium is buzzing. They're super excited for this game to happen. And then Lane Kiffin walks out. All 60,000 people in that stadium are going to start booing him. Yeah. They're supposed to be excited because they know he's going to, get out of Dodge as soon as the thing's over. So it was a situation of Lane's own making, that's what he does.
It reminded me of him leaving Tennessee for USC. That's what I was coming.
How about him getting tarmacked at USC, getting left on the tarmac after they lose? I think it was Arizona, not even getting a ride home. Where Arizona State, not even getting to ride home with the team on the team bus? Or how about when he got fired from Alabama before the national championship game after the 2016 season because he was about to take the Florida Atlantic job and he couldn't handle having that in the future and also prepping for a game? Like, they did this ESPN PR stunt where they're like, oh, this
Martin
documentary,
Smith
Lane Kiffin's change, and it's great. And like, oh, he's so happy here. It was all a lie. Lane Kiffin is going to be Lane Kiffin. And he's going to continue to do stuff like this.
Lane Kiffin's like a radio guy like us. He's a nomad. We always gotta find. We always gotta look for something else, anyways. You know.
Yeah, just doing it at the expense of at your the school that built you up, that put you in the scenario. It's like
I say rebuilt. Anyways. They rebuilt him anyways. When you think
they did, and all the bits of goodwill that he built up at Ole Miss just gone in one fell swoop. With a bunch of middle fingers directed at him at the airport in in Oxford as he left.
I cannot wait for College Game Day to be at LSU Ole Miss next year. Whenever that is, it's like I am ready for that. Give me the.
I'm
popcorn.
So glad that they play that game in Oxford. Like that'll be a road game for Lane Kiffin. I'm like,
that's what I'm really excited for. Anyways,
I don't need a lot, but I do need to see the scene in Mississippi for that game next year. Like. I need that. Inject that into my veins.
That'll probably be the most expensive Ole Miss LSU ticket of all time. Also, that's the other.
Probably, I'm gonna have to start saving now if I'm gonna, try and make my way a couple states east to go to Mississippi for that.
There we go. Your thoughts on James Franklin to Virginia Tech, by the way?
I think it's a great hire. I think Virginia Tech has been in the mud for a long time.
You're dead.
I think
James, a dead program to me.
James Franklin, he clearly can't beat top 5 teams. He doesn't really beat a whole lot of top 10 teams, but he beats everybody else.
He's perfect for the ACC.
That's what Virginia Tech needs. They need their floor raised because their floor was so low under Brent Pry and under Justin Fuente, and even the end of the Frank Beamer era. They really weren't doing a whole lot.
No,
it's been 15 years since they played in a Sugar Bowl. Yeah, so. No, I think this is a really good hire for Virginia Tech just to elevate their floor, get them back to a competitive level in the conference, which the ACC is very winnable. If 7-5 Duke can be in a tie for second place and make the ACC title game on a technicality, like why can't Virginia Tech? So I think it's a really great hire, and it's really funny how many Penn State recruits have flipped to Virginia Tech, which today is National Signing Day. There's been a lot of movement on the recruiting front. Penn State signed like 2 players today,
which is
Penn State has the 125th ranked class in college football. They're behind like McNeese State. They're behind South Dakota State. They're behind FCS programs. Like that is bad because they don't have anyone to lead the program because all their targets they swung for, they swung and missed. And I don't know who's going to coach them now. I have no idea. It might be Terry Smith, their interim. They might just bump him up to the full-time head coach because Jeff Brom turned him down from Louisville. Kalani Sitake turned him down from BYU. Seems like everyone else. Matt Rule did. Kurt Signetti did. Who are they going to hire? I don't know.
They should have went up to state to Connecticut and got Jim Mora, but he took the Colorado State job at least. Think about it.
He wanted to go west. I said from the beginning of the process, like Matt Campbell at Iowa State's the guy because he's done everything he can there, and look how much Matt Campbell's done with little at Iowa State. Yeah. I think he could do a lot with a lot at Penn State. You give him resources, I think he could do some good things there, but I haven't seen his name mentioned for this at all. Now it's sounded like Brian Daboll, the old New York Giants head coach. Like it's desperate times in State College.
It's also because Terry Pegula was one of the big donors of Penn State. He's probably like, just take him at least. Come on, at least.
Yeah, because I guess they go back to his time with the Bills. And, Brian Daboll was an Alabama offensive coordinator when they won the title in 2017. That was the Tua second and 26 play that won them the championship against Georgia. But, yeah, man, it's a mess up there. And they're not going to be close to winning a Big Ten title under whoever they hire. Like that, that roster needs some serious overhaul.
I'm not surprised they're not going to Pitt yet. I was like, Pat, just be the head coach for Penn State. Like, here's an offer. Like, I'm amazed.
Do you want Pat Narduzzi? Are you running out there to take him away from
somebody
from
there?
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of, to me, he's kind of the biggest dumb, what of all time after saying the Notre Dame comment than him getting blown out by Miami anyways, which is a
Maybe he
shit
said
show.
that stuff to make sure nobody would try and talk to him. So because he's just content at Pitt and he just wants to stay there. Because those lose by 100 to Notre Dame comments were pretty funny. Even though they only lost by like 40. They didn't lose by 100.
I think Tony Siragusa would see that if he was still alive as like men go play football at Pitt, boys go to play football at Penn State anyways. That's why I think some quote like that anyways. Let's talk about the Florida job. John Summerall to the Florida Gators. He is the Tulane head coach. Good hire? Shocking hire? What do you think?
I'm more shocked that Summerall went to Florida. I thought he was going to go to Auburn. That was all the tea leaves were that Auburn was willing to do whatever they could to make John Summerall their next head coach. But they end up getting Alex Galesh from USF, which I think that's a fine hire too.
I say it's a better hire at least. Like, because I like what he's done at USF. Anyway, he's trying to make it a football program. Because that program was in a dumpster fire for post Nate Allen days, anyways, and towards the end of the Big East days. So I like to say he's a great program builder and rebuilder and stuff. And I'm just impressed. And plus, when you think of it, like I thought he would have taken the Florida job. He's like, he would have been able to flip all of his recruits over from USF to University of Florida. Say no more, anyways. But
the Summerall hiring is a good one. I think Florida fans are going to be like, oh, another Group of 5 head coach from the state of Louisiana. That didn't work out last time, but Summerall, I think, is a different story than Billy Napier. I just think that Summerall is such a hard nose. He's a former linebacker, played at Kentucky. That was where a lot of people thought he would end up, but Kentucky waits to open to fire Mark Stoops after all these other moves happen. Then they move on to Will Stein, which is a good hire there as well. But Summerall he's a winner, and he's won at Tulane. He's won at Troy. And he just knows how to coach good football teams.
Yeah.
His team's going to play really hard nosed. They're not going to be soft, which in the SEC you need to play hard nosed. Yeah. And they really didn't do that a whole lot under Billy Napier, unless they were beating Texas early in the season to keep them out of the playoff. So I think in the long term that'll work out. I think John Summerall, he's had multiple spots where you've seen him win, which I think will give more credence to the idea of, okay, this guy's just a really good football coach, not a Billy Napier where he had a really hot stretch at Louisiana and the Sun Belt at a time when the Sun Belt really wasn't all that.
No. It was the Fun Belt, we called it, if we were chasing Mets anyways. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's good for Florida. Like, the only thing I want them to do is just get Miami back on the schedule. That's my little thing with Florida. Just get them back on the schedule. Stop playing Long Island University week 1. Come on.
They had a home and home with them these last 2 years. We'll have to see next time they end up playing.
They're probably, as I quote Dono, I think they're going on a 9. Isn't the SEC going on a 9-game conference schedule?
It is, yeah. But, I mean, that's not going to stop South Carolina and Clemson from playing, or Louisville and Kentucky. So games like that can still happen. It's just tough when you're a team like Florida and you've basically got two big rivals in state, and they're going to be like, oh, we don't want 11 power conference opponents on our schedule, even if one of those power conference opponents is Florida State, who 2-10 and 5-7 in the last 2 years. I mean,
are you shocked that Mike Norvell still has a job to this day as we record this at 10:15 on the East right now?
No, because everyone else jumped the gun on firing their head coach, and you saw the big buyout numbers. Yeah. And then when there were so many big jobs open, Florida State was sitting there like, are we really going to pay Mike Norvell and his staff $70 million not to coach, and then put a bunch of money into somebody who they're going to leverage the fact that they're the best remaining guy, give him a bunch of money? Mike Norvell's not going to work out. No, that's a given. But the timing of it, I understand it, because you're going to suck next year too. Yeah. And if the new coach comes in and sucks in his first year there's going to be no goodwill for him, and it's just going to be more of the same toxicity. Like, I think you ride this out until Florida State is in a coaching cycle where they're the biggest job, where LSU's not open, where Penn State's not open, stuff like that, because then they can attract the biggest name. Because like James Franklin was a guy who was interested in the Florida State job if it were to come open. It never did. So he goes to Virginia Tech. But like, I understand why they waited now. Eventually, Mike Norvell is going to get fired. It could be next year. It could be in the first 3 games if they start out 0-3 or whatever. But in this timing and everything, I understand why they would have wanted to wait.
I totally get it, but I just wanted to say, like, could you just like fire him, please? Like, even though I enjoyed Florida State being bad, like the next person is, but it's like I need them to be at least be somewhat competitive, at least, not just be a total joke, anyways. So
the sport is more fun when conferences have 3 or 4 teams that are really good in them.
yeah,
And that's part of the ACC's problem is right now they have one, and it's Miami. With all due respect to SMU and Virginia and Georgia Tech, the other teams that were in contention this year, Miami is the one, CFP worthy team everyone seems to think. So it's better when you have teams like Florida State who are consistently good,
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech gets back to being really good, or if SMU continues to win a lot in conference like they have in their first 2 years in the league.
Why do you think Rhett Lashley did not get any of the big name calling jobs? Do you think he just
Because he wanted to stay in Dallas. We talked to him on Fan University, which you can listen to Fan University every Saturday on the 105.3 The Fan YouTube page. We start at 9 a.m. Central. I've waited until how far are we into this segment? 45 minutes in to plug my own show, but we talked to Rhett Lashley a little before the news broke that he was signing the extension, and he talked about how he's been at SMU for 4 or 5 years now, and they're very aligned in their vision, and everyone there is on the same page, what they want, how they want to get there, and I think that's really appealing. And it's not like SMU is SMU's for listeners to the Upper Bowl podcast that do not know. SMU is one of the richest schools in the freaking country. They have nothing but money. And now that they're at the big boy table, they are happy to spend it to make sure they stay at the big boy table. That's why they're not taking conference money from the ACC's television deal for 9 years. They are taking zip, none zip nada. Yeah. So money was never going to be an issue here.
No.
If Rhett Lashley wanted to get paid more, SMU was always going to match that. And because they're willing to do that, and the product on the field, you saw them go to the college football playoff last year. They were in contention for it this year up until their last game against Cal. It's a great situation. And if if the administration is willing to buy in and give you the resources that you're asking for, why would you leave? Why would you leave to go 4-8 at Arkansas and get fired in 3 years, like Ryan Silverfield's about to do?
Yeah,
the former Memphis head coach.
I feel like all ex-Memphis head coaches just flame out there after Memphis. Anyways, it's kind of hilarious almost.
Justin Fuente, Mike Norvell. We'll see with Ryan Silverfield, but yeah, going to a place like Arkansas where you're really like the third priority in sports at your own school.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe it's really going to work out. Especially go look at Memphis's conference record over the last couple of years. Like Memphis is always in contention, but they always fall out of contention.
Yes.
Their conference record isn't as spotless as you might think it is with how Memphis has won 8 or 9 games a year for the last couple of years.
I always question this. How did Todd Graham let Mike Norvell let him go be the head coach at Memphis is the craziest thing of all time anyways.
I don't know. Look, being a head coach is being a head coach.
Finding him as an OC. Great OC with Kenny Dillingham.
Yeah. It's funny, you look at some of those staffs and the people they had on them and where they ended up going.
I look at
there's that Alabama staff from 2017, I think it was. You had Saban, but then around the same time, Lane Kiffin, you had Brian Dable, you had Mike Loxley, you had a bunch of other guys. I think Kane Womack. No, he's on the current staff, but you had a ton of guys on that staff that ended up being not just head coaches, but Power 4 head coaches who have had a lot of success.
It's crazy. It's sometimes you just go look at it as what a time we were back then, not knowing who Mike Norvell was or Kenny Dillingham was. It's crazy, anyways.
Beautifully different time.
It was. Well, your thoughts on Pat Fitzgerald taking the Michigan State job? Is that program's a mess, by the way, for football?
It is. I think it's underrated how bad they were with Jonathan Smith, who's a West Coast guy that just didn't fit in the Midwest. Pat Fitzgerald did a lot of good at Northwestern. It's going to be weird seeing him wear a color that's not purple because they'll have to wear green being at Michigan State.
Or white.
But let us not forget that Northwestern in the last final years of Pat Fitzgerald's time there was going 2-10 and 3-9 and 1-11. They had a great COVID season because a lot of people did because the COVID season was weird. But outside of that, there was not a lot to write home about with Northwestern football. So Well, maybe he'll have more resources. Maybe, Michigan State will play hard for him. That's something they didn't do with Jonathan Smith. You
Mhm.
like the idea of the hire, but there are things about it where I'm like, I thought Pat Fitzgerald would go to one of these Group of 5 openings and kind of like reprove himself, but Michigan State was willing to give him the chance at the Power 4 level. So we'll see. In theory, I think I like it, but in practice, I'm like, I got to see this on the field before I really buy in, especially in an expanded Big Ten with the West Coast teams and Ohio
Mhm.
State and Michigan still being good as they usually are, and now Indiana being really freaking good.
Who would have thought Indiana as well?
Yeah,
Alex Golesh to Auburn. I think that's the most interesting hire, and I think this first one, the presser conference he had, one of the people like, how much do you like golf? Which is so effing funny.
none. He
None.
made
Which
it. He made it
I
very
love it.
clear.
I
He's like,
love that.
I'm not Hugh Freeze. I'm not him. And he runs an exciting offense. It's a really fast offense, and that some offense has been the thing that's escaped Auburn for a while now. I
Hmm.
mean, you'd have to go back to like 2019 when Bo Nix was there to really look at him
Yeah.
and be like, okay, they had something cooking there. It's been a minute, and they're investing in guys like Jackson Arnold and Ashton Daniels, like that's and Peyton Thorne before that. That's not the way.
No.
So you hope Alex Golesh. I mean, he comes from the Josh Heupel tree
Hmm.
of offense. So he's had success at South Florida, had success at Tennessee. You like to think that he could continue that, give him more resources. I just thought he'd end up elsewhere. I thought he'd get the Arkansas job,
Yeah.
but no, he ends up going to Auburn, and it kind
I
of feels
think.
like Auburn got spurred by Summerall, so they just were
Yeah.
like, okay, you're the next best guy. Like, we'll just hire you.
Which I kind of like Alex Golesh. I've had him on do the high school sports show. We've had on a lot of college coaches. He was on a couple times. They're like, oh, this dude sounds like a good dude anyway. So that's one dude. Like, I hope you do well at Auburn, make it entertaining, and beat Alabama for me. That's all I
He
ask.
he hates Tom Herman when he was Florida Atlantic's head coach. So
There we
just
go.
man after my own heart.
Hey, same too. Bob Chesney to UCLA. He was the JMU head coach. UCLA is a mess, and they're leaving the Rose Bowl, and they're going to SoFi. Could they just build a stadium and just be on campus? Because that's what they should do.
They can't.
I know.
There's no space on UCLA's campus. It's funny that they're having to pivot to an NFL stadium, which is just sad because the SoFi is just it's a soulless corporate NFL stadium. It doesn't have
Yeah.
history to it like the Rose Bowl would, and
Mm-hmm.
the Rose Bowl is just built in a neighborhood, and the people who live in that neighborhood really don't like the Rose Bowl, and the Rose Bowl really doesn't like the people that live in that neighborhood. So it's a tough situation, and it just stinks. But Bob Chesney's a winner.
Yeah.
Bob Chesney has won a lot. I mean, he's continued to keep James Madison as a powerhouse. So you got to like him more than Deshaun Foster.
Yes.
Deshaun Foster might have been the most ill-prepared college football head coach we've maybe ever seen, where in his first press conference, he was like, we're a football team. We're from Los Angeles, in case you didn't know. Like, go look up his first presser at Big Ten Media Days from 2024 and tell me that's not, that dude was just drowning us the second he stepped into that job. So Bob Chesney will definitely do things better than Deshaun Foster did, but it's tough in an expanded Big Ten when you're probably still not even the priority at your own school.
No, you're not even the main priority. It's usually football, it's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you baseball,
and then probably football, but still, it's
football.
yeah, it's tough in this era for UCLA, but you got to like bringing in a proven winner.
Definitely. Do you think this is since they're leaving Rose Bowl? I don't want to say this question in the ether, but I'm going to have to. Do you think the Rose Bowl is going to leave the game to SoFi? Unfortunately, do you have that feeling? Are they going to stay at like the Cotton Bowl? Like how like the Cotton Bowl?
They're going to stay at the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl game is never going to move from the Rose Bowl. Mark my words here on what is today on December 3rd, 2025 at what time is it? 9:13 Central. The Rose Bowl is never not going to be played at the actual Rose Bowl unless there's a global pandemic where then it needs to be played at AT&T Stadium in Dallas like it was during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Rose Bowl will always take place there. The Rose Bowl is too sacred to the sport for it to not take place there. There are too many people in and around the sport that know the history of it, that love the history of it, that will fight to continue to keep it there. If it was up to me, the national title game every year would be at the Rose Bowl, and it would be on January 1st. That way it doesn't interfere with the NFL playoffs. But the
Yes.
Rose Bowl is it's like the Cotton Bowl here
Yeah.
in Dallas, the actual Cotton Bowl. The Cotton Bowl game is played at AT&T Stadium, but the Cotton Bowl itself at the State Fairgrounds, that still exists. That's where OU Texas is played. That's where a couple HBCU games is played. It's a piece of crap, but it's our piece of crap. You hear me?
Yes.
And that's the Rose Bowl is college football's piece of crap. But damn it, if it's not our piece of crap too. Like, we're going to keep that thing, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure it sticks around. And if I need to do something to help that out, call me up. I will stump for that stadium to be important to the sport as long as I can.
We did lose the Orange Bowl because no one wanted to refurbish at University of Miami, and they want to go play in an NFL stadium. So we have to keep the Rose Bowl. So
that is sad. That the Hard Rock Stadium just doesn't have the same allure that the old Orange Bowl did, or even the Gator Bowl up in Jacksonville. Like, now it's wherever the Jaguars play, and that you talk about a lifeless NFL stadium. That's Everbank Stadium is the epitome of that.
If you've ever been to Cleveland, the Factory of Sadness, that's where there's no life anyways. I always say that. So, all right. Did we talk about how UCLA and Lincoln Riley are trying to get Notre Dame off the schedule last time?
We talked about that last time, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Been to the game, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. How was the OU LSU game? I like to say that was a fun game to watch. I was listening to it driving home, by the way.
If you really like defense and special teams,
yes,
that's your kind of game, because both offenses were bad. OU's offense has been putrid over the last 2 weeks. Even the game against Missouri, where they won by 11, the offense was not good. But look, people are going to be mad that OU and their awful offense are basically a lock to make the CFP now. OU has a top 2 defense in the country. I think Ohio State is the only overall unit that's better than they are. They have dynamite special teams. They have Isaiah Satania returning punts, who is electric. They have the best kicker in the country in Tate Sandell. And their offense, if not nowhere close to perfect, it gets big plays. That's how they win games. That's how they beat LSU, was on a busted coverage late in the fourth quarter. They get a big touchdown to go ahead after that. And I'm sitting there standing there, I should say, in the cold. I think it was in the mid 40s by the time that game ended, because it started to get dark. It was cold. As soon as they scored that touchdown, I didn't feel cold anymore, because I was too busy jumping around with all my friends up in the upper deck at Gaylord Family Memorial Stadium in Oklahoma, celebrating that touchdown. But OU, they're going to be a problem for whoever they play.
I think
they're going to muck it up. It's going to be an ugly game. But their mantra this year is that they're hard to kill, and they started to play 50 Cent song, Many Men.
Yes.
Wish Death. That's become like the song that they play in the stadium on the speakers going into the fourth quarter. And after they played that, that's when they went ahead, won the game. Walking back to my car with my buddy Corey, who I went to the game with, we heard Many Men blasting from so many different places. And we're talking like old school, like grandpas and grandmas celebrating this win, blasting 50 Cent across Norman, Oklahoma. It's the most amazing thing that of all the people in the world to just rally around some 2000s gangsta bling rap, that it would be people from Oklahoma. But here we are, and that's exactly what OU is. They're hard to kill, and they're going to be a problem for whoever, if it's Notre Dame or Miami, whoever they end up hosting for a college football playoff game. They are going to be a problem for them.
If I will say this, that just made my day. That someone's still playing 50 Cent in that album. It's probably one of my favorite albums growing up anyways. So
get rich or die trying.
Get rich, die trying anyways. Brian Hartline to USF, by the way. Did he just get a coaching job because he has the best offense, would you say, this year at Ohio State?
Well, he's the best recruiter of wide receiver talent in the country.
That's true.
That's for sure. That's how you get Jeremiah Smith and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and God, the list goes on and on. It's literally Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate.
Yep.
It's crazy how good the wide receiver talent has been there. And today, Chris Henry Jr., I don't think he signed with Ohio State yet, but he might still end up there. He's a 5-star receiver too. He's going to be really good wherever he ends up playing. But South Florida's trying to spend like they're a group of they're a Power 4 program. They're at the Group of 5 level, but they try and spend like they are one of the big boys because that's where they want to end up.
Yeah.
And when I saw them beat UNC earlier this year, you could see just the size disparity and the players on lines of scrimmage. It's like, okay, South Florida's trying to be for real. So you're going to have resources there. You're going to recruit in the state of Florida, which is a talent-rich environment. And it's already shown to be one of the better jobs at that level. So it's not so much of like, oh, Brian Hartline wanted to be a head coach. It's like, no, USF's a really good job that if they continue to win like they are now, they could end up, maybe moving up at some point. If these conferences, 16, 18 teams isn't enough for them, well, they can add a team like South Florida because it's a good job, and they should still have success, even losing a good offensive mind like Alex Galesh. You have to think someone like Brian Hartline is going to continue some of that success.
Insert the Chip Kelly's going back to Ohio State next year rumor already. Just get started already.
Oh, they need no C. So
they need no C. Chip Kelly's
got last time.
Worked out perfectly. All right. Do you think any other move? Do you think there's gonna be movement Sunday at noon? There's gonna be. We're gonna see any movement at all, or do you think it's gonna be the same as we see as we record next time? You think before the CFP starts the first round?
The only movement that I can see is Alabama beating Georgia. I don't see BYU upsetting Texas Tech. So I think Texas Tech is going to win, and Texas Tech will have a bye, which is just insane that Texas Tech is going to have a bye in the college football playoff. That they're going to win. I think they're going to win the Big 12 for the first time ever. Their first outright conference championship since the 50s is what it would be. Jeez. So they would win that and have a bye. Like, that's still crazy. Texas Tech and Indiana potentially having byes is just still nutso to me.
Two basketball schools. So Bobby Knight, who's he going to root for?
There you go. There's your connection there is Bobby Knight. But no, Alabama beating Georgia is the only thing I could see, because then if Alabama wins that game, I think they would jump up. They would get a bye. They would get the 4 seed, bump Texas Tech up to 3. And then Georgia would fall behind them. And then that would push teams down, right? So like OU's the 8 seed right now. But if Alabama beats them, they would jump up, one would like to think, and then push Georgia down and everyone else down below them, because then it would be Ole Miss lost to Georgia, so they'd be right behind them. And then A&M, they put Ole Miss in front of A&M after A&M lost to Texas. So it could depend. It could change where certain teams play, but that's the only thing I can see happening. And I can still see a scenario where Georgia wins and Alabama still ends up in the CFP as the 10 seed, because the committee kind of set themselves up for safety this week by bumping Alabama up to 9. So then if they lose to Georgia by 3, they'll be like, we can just bump them back down to 10, have Notre Dame be the 9 seed, and then we don't have that rematch, that OU-Alabama rematch that we could potentially gotten in the first round. So I don't think we'll see a ton of movement. And I'm sorry to the Vandys and the Utahs and the Miamis and the Texases of the world, but like there's just not enough spots this year. It's just unfortunate. You have really good seasons.
The Texas fans go F off right now anyways. They hyped up Arch Manning, and we were the first ones to sniff him out anyways on the spot anyways.
We were on top of that, and the whining and the begging to get into the playoff when it's your fault for not beating Florida is just silly, and you trying to not schedule tough games out of conference anymore. That's been some of the talk that's gone around. Like, that's stupid. Like,
that's dumb.
Don't be reactionary to one season. If this happens to you on more than one occasion, maybe then you can talk about this and change your strategy. But like, I think it's incredibly stupid to be reactionary to one season. But that's college football. I mean, we wanted to change the 12-team playoff after 1 year of doing it. So that's just the way the sport works. But just if you're going to schedule teams like Ohio State, beat them.
Yes.
Don't get held to 0 points the first 57 minutes of that game. Simple as that.
Texas fan, here's my crying towel for you. Go take it anyway. So
there it is. Go use that.
Who is your Heisman Trophy winner, since we've never really talked about this year anyways?
I think the best player in the country is Jeremiah Love. Well, actually, no. The best player in the country is Jeremiah Smith.
Exactly.
Jeremiah Smith's not putting up Heisman numbers this year. He did last year. Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame, I think, is playing like the best player in the country. Every year that's ended in 5 since like the 50s has seen a running back win the award.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of crazy if that streak continued. But Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt's really put himself back in this mix, hasn't he? I mean, him going and just whooping Tennessee on the road, winning 10 games at a place where they never won 10 games before. That's put him back on the map. But I feel like it's going to be chalk. I feel like I feel like Fernando Mendoza is a pretty safe bet. But if Indiana loses big in the Big Ten title game, then like, hey, Julian Sayin, he could be the guy that steps in and ends up taking that award. But if it was me, I would give some love to Jeremiah Love. And Jacob Rodriguez at Texas Tech, I think, deserves a lot of shine as well. But I still think it's going to be a quarterback, whether it's Mendoza or Pavia. I think it's going to be someone like that.
If Pavia wins, this will be the biggest thing that's going to happen on Vanderbilt's campus ever since winning a college baseball World Series. Am I right?
Or signing a 5-star quarterback away from Georgia like they did this morning. Jared Curtis flipping from Georgia to Vanderbilt is just like, how is that a sentence that's being said? But that's where Vanderbilt is. They're competitive.
Sometimes you just want the good education at Vanderbilt. That doctorate degree could go anywhere,
And all of a sudden you start winning 10 games, Vanderbilt becomes a lot more appealing. A lot more appealing to recruits like that.
Definitely, for sure. Carter, we'll talk before the college football playoff starts. We'll get our predictions for the first round, and then how about that? Anyways,
I can't wait, man. It's sad that we don't have as much football on the horizon as we once did. But
wait. We have Army Navy next weekend, which is my favorite game of the year, by the way. America's game, by the way,
all by itself. For everyone to watch. So not the prettiest game, but it's generally a close, entertaining game.
I will say this: it's probably one of my favorite games to go to because you never know who you get to do a shot luge with out of an ice thing anyway. So if a Navy cadet or an Army cadet, it's so much fun anyways.
They always wear funky uniforms too. They always they always look a little different than they normally do, which is fun.
Carter, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you as always for coming on this season of college football, I like to say.
Of course, man. It's been a blast. Love talking ball and go check out Musings on Music. That's my music Substack. Trevor, you mentioned it earlier.
Yes.
Not next week, but the following week, starting on, I believe, December 15th. I'm going to start rolling out my favorite albums of the year, favorite songs, favorite, the honorable mentions. We'll do the worst music moments of the year and a couple other kind of et cetera music things. I mean, I listened to 88,000 minutes of music this year, according to Spotify. So I feel like I have a little bit to write and talk about there. So Musings on Music, that's cfreeman.substack.com. Go check that out. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Fan University, 9 to noon every Saturday here in DFW Central Time. We're on 105.3 The Fan's YouTube page. Talking ball there with Jake and Brennan. We have a lot of fun. So check me out on all that stuff.
Definitely. Thank you as always for coming by. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll talk to you later.